Someone walks toward you with open arms, big smile, warm energy. They're coming in for a hug and your entire body tightens. Your shoulders rise, your breath catches. You don't hate this person, you might even love them. But something inside you quietly screams, please don't. Meanwhile, the person next to you melts into hugs like they were born for it. Arms wide, no hesitation, full surrender. They squeeze strangers. They hold on longer than expected. They say things like, I'm a hugger, as if that explains everything. Two people, same moment, completely different internal worlds. Why? What is actually happening inside the mind of someone who flinches when affection gets physical? Is it coldness? Is it trauma? Is it just personality? Or is it something deeper, something the huggers of the world have never had to think about? Stick with me until the end, because the answer isn't simple. It isn't one thing. And if you've ever been the person who quietly dreads the greeting hug, the goodbye hug, the surprise hug from behind, this video might explain something about yourself you've never been able to put into words. Let's start with something most people get wrong. Not wanting to be hugged is not the same as not wanting to be loved. That distinction matters more than you think, because our culture has decided that physical affection equals emotional connection. That if you love someone, you should want to hold them. That if someone opens their arms, saying no is somehow rejecting them. But that equation is flawed, deeply flawed. Touch is a language. And like any language, not everyone speaks it the same way. Not everyone learned it the same way. And for some people, that language was taught through pain. Let's talk about the first group. The ones whose bodies learned to protect before they learned to receive. Imagine growing up in a home where touch wasn't safe. Maybe it wasn't violent, maybe it was just unpredictable. A parent who hugged you when they were happy but grabbed you when they were angry. A household where physical closeness came with conditions, where affection was currency, given when you performed well and withdrawn when you didn't. Or maybe it was worse than that. Maybe touch was a violation. Maybe someone who was supposed to protect you used closeness as a weapon. And your body, your brilliant, adaptive, survival-oriented body, learned a lesson it never forgot. Closeness is danger. This is what psychologists call a trauma response. And here's the part most people don't understand. It doesn't require conscious memory to operate. You don't have to remember the specific event for your nervous system to remember the feeling. Your body keeps the score. That phrase exists for a reason. When someone reaches out to hug a person with this kind of history, what the hugger sees is a simple gesture of warmth. What the other person's nervous system sees is an incoming threat. The muscles tense, the heart rate spikes, the skin crawls, not because the hug is dangerous, but because the body doesn't know that yet. It's still running on old software. Software that was written during a time when physical closeness meant something very different. These people aren't cold, they're guarded. And there is a universe of difference between those two words. They might desperately want to be held. They might crave connection more than anyone in the room, but their body has built a wall between desire and comfort, between wanting love and being able to physically receive it without panic. And the tragedy is they often feel broken because of it. They watch other people embrace easily and wonder what's wrong with them. Why can't I just be normal? Why does something so simple feel so impossible? Nothing is wrong with them. Their body did exactly what it was supposed to do. It protected them. The problem is that the protection didn't come with an off switch. Healing this isn't about forcing hugs. It isn't about exposure therapy at family dinners. It's about slowly, patiently teaching the nervous system that safety exists, that not every pair of arms carries the same history, and that takes time, sometimes years, sometimes a lifetime. Now let's talk about the second group. And this one is more common than people realize. The ones who experience touch as overstimulation, not comfort. Not everyone who avoids hugs has trauma. Some people are simply wired differently. Their sensory processing system treats physical contact the way most people treat a loud, sudden noise. It's not painful exactly, it's just too much. This is closely linked to what psychologists call sensory sensitivity, and it shows up frequently in people with anxiety, people on the autism spectrum, and highly sensitive individuals. That last one is a classification developed by psychologist Elaine Aron, and it describes roughly 15 to 20% of the population. For these people, a hug isn't just pressure on the body, it's information overload. The warmth of another person's skin, The smell of their clothes, the sound of their breathing near your ear, the unpredictability of how long it will last, how tight they'll squeeze, and when it will end. Every single one of those inputs requires processing. And for a nervous system that already runs close to capacity, that processing cost is high. Think of it this way. Imagine your brain has a bandwidth limit, kind of like an internet connection. Most people have enough bandwidth to process a hug in the background while still feeling emotionally present. But for the sensory-sensitive person, a hug takes up almost all of the bandwidth. There's no room left for the emotional part. Instead of feeling loved, they feel trapped. Instead of warmth, they feel noise. And this is why some people who don't like hugs will still accept them from very specific people. A partner, a child, one particular friend. It's not hypocrisy. It's familiarity. The sensory load is lower with someone whose body your nervous system already recognizes. The smell is known. The pressure is predictable. The brain doesn't have to work as hard, so it can finally relax enough to let the emotional signal through. But with acquaintances, coworkers, extended family members who insist on greeting hugs at every gathering, the system overloads, and the person either shuts down, stiffens up, or does that awkward half hug with one arm. You know the one. It's the universal body language for "I'm tolerating this for your sake." These people often develop what I'd call social touch anxiety. It's a quiet but persistent dread that surrounds any social situation where a physical greeting is expected. They walk into a party already calculating, who's going to hug me? Can I wave first? Can I hold something in my hand so I have an excuse? It sounds exhausting because it is exhausting. And the worst part is they often can't explain it without sounding rude. Saying "I don't like being touched" in a culture that worships physical warmth feels like saying "I don't like being loved." So they stay silent, they endure. And they leave social gatherings more drained than anyone realizes. But here's the thing. These aren't broken people avoiding connection. They're people whose connection runs through different channels. Words, acts of service, quality time. Presence without contact. They love deeply, they just love quietly. And their love doesn't need skin to be real. Now let's talk about the third group. And honestly, this one might be the most misunderstood of all. The ones who protect their autonomy like oxygen. Some people don't avoid hugs because of trauma. They don't avoid them because of sensory overload. They avoid them because a hug, at its core, is someone entering your personal space without a contract. I know that sounds clinical, so let me make it human. These are people who have a deeply rooted need for bodily autonomy, the right to decide who touches them when, how, and for how long. And a hug, especially the social obligation kind, violates every single one of those conditions. Think about it for a second. When someone comes at you with open arms in a group setting, what are your real options? You can accept it. Or you can reject it and deal with the awkwardness, the confusion, the quiet judgment of everyone watching. That's not really a choice. That's social coercion wrapped in warmth. Psychologists call this a boundary issue, but I think it goes deeper than that. For these people, physical autonomy is identity. It's not about the hug itself. It's about what the hug represents. Someone is deciding on your body without asking, and before you think that sounds dramatic, consider this. We teach children that they have to hug relatives. We tell teenagers to lighten up when they pull away. We call adults cold or distant when they prefer a handshake. At every single stage of life, we punish people for asserting control over their own physical space. So some of them stop asserting it openly. They comply, they hug back. They perform warmth, but inside, something small and important erodes every time. A sense of self, a sense of ownership, a quiet truth that says, "This is my body and I didn't invite you in." These people aren't rejecting affection. They're protecting sovereignty, and in a world that constantly asks you to be accessible, to be open, to be touchable, choosing to be untouchable is actually a radical act of self-definition. They show love through loyalty, through honesty, through showing up consistently without ever needing to prove it with their arms. Their care is architectural, not decorative. It holds weight even though you can't see it. Now here's where it gets complicated. Because all three of these groups share something in common, they're all exhausted by the performance. The trauma survivor is exhausted from pretending they're fine with closeness. The sensory-sensitive person is exhausted from absorbing contact their nervous system didn't ask for. The autonomy protector is exhausted from explaining, or worse, not explaining, and just being quietly labeled as cold. And society doesn't help, because we've built a world where warmth is measured in physical units. Hugs, kisses, handshakes, pats on the back. If you don't participate, you're suspicious. If you flinch, something must be wrong with you. If you ask someone not to touch you, you've made it weird. But here's a psychological truth that nobody really talks about. The people who set physical boundaries are often the most emotionally intelligent in the room. Because they understand something most people skip right over. Real intimacy isn't about access to someone's body. It's about respect for someone's limits. Anyone can hug you, not everyone will ask first. And the difference between those two things is the difference between affection and entitlement. There's also an irony here that's worth naming. The people who don't like hugs. They're often the ones who, when they finally do let someone in physically, offer the most meaningful touch you'll ever experience. Because it's chosen, it's intentional, it's not a habit, it's not performance. It's permission granted from a place of genuine safety. That kind of closeness is rare, and it's worth more than 1,000 casual embraces from people who hug everyone the same way. So now the question comes to you quietly. Which one are you? The one whose body learned to flinch before it learned to relax? The one who feels everything too loudly when someone gets too close? Or the one who simply decided that your space is yours and no social norm gets to override that? Maybe you're a combination. Maybe you've shifted between all three at different points in your life. Maybe you're only now realizing that what you thought was a flaw is actually a feature. A deeply intelligent response to a world that doesn't always respect the people living in it. If one of these felt uncomfortably familiar, say it. Tell me in the comments. Not to fix it, not to diagnose it, just to name it. Because understanding always begins with naming. Here's what I want to leave you with. You don't owe anyone your body. Not a hug, not a handshake, not a pat on the back to make them feel comfortable. Warmth is not measured by how much of yourself you give away on demand. It's measured by how honestly you show up when it matters. Some people express love like fireworks. Loud, bright, impossible to miss. Others express it like gravity. Invisible, constant, holding everything together without ever being seen. Both are real, both are valid, and the world needs both. So maybe the real question isn't why some people don't like hugs. Maybe it's this. Do you need to touch someone to know they care, or do you trust what you can't feel enough to believe it's there? Tell me what you think. Because somewhere between the open arms and the quiet distance is where most of us actually live. If this helped you understand yourself or someone you love a little differently, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. We go deep into the kind of psychology that actually explains you. Don't forget to like the video. It helps more people find messages like this one. I'll see you there.